Welcome to Study Loop.
This example is asking us to essentially compare nominal GDP with real GDP and look at how the GDP deflator impacts growth rates and inflation rates. Let's start with the nominal GDP, and this is for an economy which only produces chocolate bars, so it keeps it pretty simple for us. We're using year 1 as the base year, which has a quantity of 3 and a price of $4, and you can see in year 2 we have quantity of 4 and a price of 5, and year 3 a quantity of 5 and a price of 6. So let's start by calculating the nominal GDP for each one of these years. You can see written in blue is the formula for each one of these parts. So for the nominal GDP, we're going to take the price in the current year times the quantity in the current year. So that makes it pretty easy. So for the first year, we have 3 times 4, which gives us a nominal GDP equal to $12. Second year, we're going to take our quantity of 4, multiply that by the price of $5, which gives us a nominal GDP of $20. And for year 3, we have a quantity of 5 multiplied by a price of 6, giving us a nominal GDP of $30. Now let's go ahead and calculate the real GDPs, which is basically just comparing this to the price during the base year so that we're able to adjust for any inflation. So for the first year here, because the first year is our base year, that real GDP is just going to be whatever its nominal GDP was because it's compared to itself. For that second year, we're going to take that price in the base year, which we see as $4, and that gets multiplied by the quantity during year 2, which is 4, giving us a real GDP of $16. And for year 3, again, we're using that base year price of $4 multiplied by the quantity of 5, and that gives us a real GDP of $20. Now to calculate the GDP deflator, we're just going to take the nominal GDP, dividing that by the real GDPs that we just calculated and multiplying it by 100. So let's do that for each one of our years as well. So for year 1, we see we have a nominal GDP of 12 divided by its real GDP of 12, multiplying that by 100, gives us a GDP deflator for the first year equal to 100. And in the second year, we have the nominal GDP of 20, dividing that by its real GDP of 16 and multiplying that by 100, we have a GDP deflator equal to 125. And for the third year, looks like we have our nominal GDP of $30 divided by the real GDP of $20 times 100, giving us a GDP deflator which is equal to 150. Now if we'd like to know what our percent growth rate of real GDP from year 2 to year 3 was, we're going to use the formula where we take the real GDP of year 3 minus the real GDP in year 2 divided by the real GDP in year 2 and times it by 100. So let's start here. Let's see, we're going to be using the real GDP in year 3, so that's 20, minus the real GDP in year 2, which was 16, divided by 16 times 100. That gives us a percent growth rate of real GDP from year 2 to year 3, which is equal to 25%. And if we want to find what the inflation rate measured by this GDP deflator that we calculated in part C from year 2 to year 3, we're going to use a similar formula that we just did in part D, but instead we're going to be using this GDP deflator rather than the real GDP. So the real GDP deflator in year 3 we found was 150. Subtracting from that the GDP deflator of 125 in year 2, and that gets divided by 125 again, times 100 gives us an inflation rate from year 2 to year 3, which is equal to 20%.